Hey everybody, we have an exciting new show. I'm joined by Kyle Mullins, and we're going to do a show called Collecting Catch-Up. So what we're going to try to do is every month we're going to hit the top 3 or 4 things that happened in the collecting world. This is mostly going to be kind of card-based, but we might do other kind of hobbies as well. But we want you to catch up on whatever happened last month, these big games, big announcements. Maybe you saw it in the news, a 20-second clip, but we're trying to condense this down into one show. So for today, we're going to hit 3 things. We're going to hit Lorcana, which everybody can't shut up about. We're going to hit the new Magic Lord of the Rings set, and then we're also going to hit this new Star Wars game from Fantasy Flights that was just announced. So that's sort of the run of show and what we're hoping to do. We're trying to do this monthly. We'll see how this runs. This is our first time. So Kyle, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about all these things, especially like I'm going to touch upon the Star Wars Unlimited, which I know has been touched upon. But yeah, all these topics are kind of top of mind, but we're going to try and keep this succinct so you can kind of get a quick catch up on this, and we can always deep dive on these later.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with Lorcana, right? This has been a game that was announced at this huge Disney Expo D23 last fall, and you had these 6 promos, well, really 7 with a Mickey Mouse that were released, and there was 900 printed of them, and the value of them is like absolutely skyrocketed, just like an absolute insane. I remember looking the first week, and it was $1,700 for all 6, and I was like, that's a crazy price, and now it's like quintupled or something, right? So I think that Lorcana is a really interesting example of this brand new IP that's coming out, and people are really excited. Ravensburger is the company publishing it. This Disney IP. They've released already like almost 80 preview cards, and I'm sitting here looking through the preview cards and like, these look awesome. And so let me tell you first, the set's supposed to drop September 1st in sort of every store, and it's going to drop August 18th in sort of hobby stores. So they're trying to cater to that hobby audience. But the big issue facing Lorcana right now is allocation. Is nobody knows how much of it's going to be out there. So they're doing set 1. It's going to be 204 cards, so relatively smallish, medium-sized set, but no one really knows who's getting what. So if you sit there and call your local game store, you're going to have them tell you, we have no idea what's going on. And I think Ravensburger is not super well prepared for this because they're used to making puzzles, and no one goes in and buys 10,000, special edition puzzles of like a wolf or something, right? But people do that with stuff like this.
Yeah, and I would say at least from hobbies, like at least from game stores, like from my experience and from some things where they limit the amount you can purchase as an individual. So even if you said, I will buy everything you get, they may say we're only limiting 1 or 2, cases or boxes per customer to allow a better distribution. But like you said, I mean, maybe they only get 4 or 5, 6 cases or so. We don't know if this is going to be something that'll take up an entire aisle in Walmart, or if this is going to be like, I was only able to get my hands on 1 or 2, and some guy booked it the second I got it. Like there's going to be some shark out there.
Is this going to be like, it's like we get like a PlayStation 5, right? It's like you have to wait 2 years to get.
This is going to get like ugly in terms of people trying to book their spot in getting this item if it goes to these small stores.
Absolutely.
It will be talked about. Everyone's eyeing it. Everybody sees the prices on these D23 things. Like, this isn't going away. And what's too bad is you're probably going to have some kids that are going to be like excited, be like, Mom, Dad, like I want to play this, but they're not going to, the parents are going to be caught completely off guard over like all these like adult collectors who are like, I'm going to make millions off this, and they're going to go after it, so that'll really be interesting, especially come August, hopefully when we hear more information about this.
Yeah, so I think, you want to hit 3 audiences, right? You want to hit the players, that's your base there. Then you have collectors, and you're going to have some investors, right? You're going to have some people that are speculating on this, that think that they can buy low, sell high, and they're going to be driving up this price. But I think the difference between, PlayStation 5 launch where people were, okay waiting 2 years to get a PlayStation 5 versus this is a brand new game, right? Lorcana, if there's a sour taste in people's mouths where they can't even get a hold of any of the product and it's all being held by a very small community, that's going to stymie that player base. It's going to stymie local tournament scenes. It's going to kind of kill that initial momentum that you're going to need. If you're truly going to be a Magic killer, then you need to be out the gates. And I think that they kind of screwed up with D23 and allowing the secondary market to go absolutely bonkers with these 6 promos, right? Like I don't think that's good for anybody, right? I get that all engagement's good engagement, but I don't think it's good for parents to be thinking about, getting their kids into this game. They look and they see a booster box is 4x over retail on eBay, and they're just like, never mind, we're going to go back to puzzles, right?
Well, they're going to go. They're going to go back to like Pokemon because that's
right.
accessible. That's still coming out quarterly, and that's cheap. And the kids are crazy about it. They don't really know anything about it, but they know their friends have it. So like, oh, I want some.
Right.
Like,
And with
looking at the
Pokemon,
individual sets and going like, oh, I'm going to spec on this. Like, I showed a kid a graded Pokemon card. He's like, oh, that's neat. What is this plastic thing? Like. They don't care. They don't know. The parents are like, oh, I had these in the classroom. I threw some out because I didn't really care. It's like,
right. So there's this real risk. I think this launch doesn't go well, and that you're sitting around Christmas and the boxes are on eBay for 2x retail, 3x retail. I don't think you're doing this well. And set 2, I think, is supposed to launch in December 18th. So September 1 is the public launch in all stores. August 18th in specialty stores. Hopefully Ravensburger is going to be printing this stuff massive. There's no reason not to, in my opinion. Like, I don't think creating scarcity initially is a good marketing strategy. I don't think it's going to set people up for success. I think it's just going to long-term kind of upset people. So that's our Lorcana update. I'm excited for this game. I think it looks really cool. I hope I can get my hands on it for retail value. I'm one of these people that I don't think I'm going to pay $400 for a booster box when it should be, $5.99 a pack. So we'll see what happens with that. I think we'll definitely continue talking about Lorcana, but let's move on to Star Wars. So there's some exciting news from Fantasy Flights. What have you heard, Kyle?
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't know that much about Fantasy Flight games, period. So I put down a quick rundown just so we can kind of get on the same page in terms of Fantasy Flight games. So they're from Roseville, Minnesota, right? Founded in '95, so they're not like a new company. They've been around for a while. And they produce board games, card games, miniature games, role-playing games, and other tabletop games. They're really known for their high-quality components, like their immersive world games and their gameplay mechanics, which is good. And the company has other franchises like, they've published games in the Star Wars space before, but Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Marvel. And they have
that dice Star Wars game, Destiny, right? It's like I wanted like a freaking like a plastic tub full of the dice. That was like what I remember.
Yeah, and they have one. If you play board games enough, you may have seen the awards on certain games, like the Spiel des Jahres award.
Yeah.
It's like they give it out to certain board games that are recognized. They got an award for that for Code Names in 2016, which I'm sure you've seen that.
I didn't realize that was Fantasy Flights. Code Names rocks, man. Like that's a great party game right there. Just throwing it out there.
Right. So like not quite the same game, but like they're not exactly idiots in making games, period. They do have a parent company called Asmodee, which is a leading global game publisher and distributor. They do have their own organized play program called Organized Play, which supports tournaments and events for games around the world. So they do have like an established tournament setup structure. So they've done this before. They do have a strong online presence and a good website, active social media accounts on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So that's good.
So this is all a really interesting juxtaposition to Ravensburger. So Lorcana is being done by Ravensburger, which is a puzzle company, right? Like, and frankly, I think they were not ready for the excitement caused by D23 cards. And that's why you saw just some kind of slow-footedness, I think, with the response to the excitement around this game.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a company that has the infrastructure in place already and a proven track record jumping into this, right? And they've done things for games of all ages, skill levels, from like those casual family fun party games to more complex strategy games. So they have a wide range of depth there. And they do have a dedicated fan base that is continuing to grow and active online communities and forums, that are talking about that. So that's good. So there is social engagement for it. And in terms of,
is there a however coming? I thought there was a however coming. That's what I was like. It's like however.
No, I think we were talking about that like juxtaposition with Lorcana, where it's like Ravensburg, what are they doing? Who are they knowing? Like, I'm getting the impression here that like Fantasy Flight, like from what I've been learning, is better suited, better structured, better set up to succeed, to jump into this. And here's what we know about this Star Wars game specifically, right? So it's going to be this, for those who don't know, right? It's a new trading card game that's going to have characters from all over the Star Wars universe and the franchise, right? So this game is supposed to be fast paced. It's supposed to be something that's easy to learn, but strategically deep, with a regular release schedule of 3 sets per year, right? So every 4 months, they're going to release a new set. That's the plan. The organized play has been designed alongside the game from the beginning with like weekly store level community experiences and worldwide large scale events. So that's what they're already putting in place of what they want to do. They want to get this local community and have worldwide scale tournaments, right? This is before this is even launched. The game has been in development for the last 3 years, and it's going to feature never before seen art with alternate cards and variant designs for dedicated TCG fans and collectors. Now,
how did they keep it under wraps for 3 years? That's the big shock to me. Sorry.
So, yeah, this is good. So what this tells me is they probably have been, outside of putting in Star Wars characters and dealing with the art, is they've probably been working on game mechanics for something of like X character, B character, whatever. They can fill in the blanks with who the Star Wars character is, the alien name, or the references after the fact, right? But when it comes to actual playing a game, like how do we make a good game? We can slap the Star Wars stuff on it afterwards. So they can be like, how do we get a good trading card game going? Using the Star Wars IP is just kind of icing on the cake. That's what's going to get everybody drawn in. But to actually mechanically put the game together, it makes sense to get something that works really well. I mean, if you have a really good game mechanic that works and you call it la 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 baba, it's like nobody's going to care. Even if the game's really great, they're going to be like, what the hell is that? But that's what that's telling me. I don't know what you're getting out of that, but my guess is they want to make sure they land this right. I mean, if you're gonna drop a Star Wars game that's supposed to be competing with the likes of tournaments for now Lorcana, Magic, Pokemon, like they better hit the ground on the right foot, right? They better get this going. So they want this to be accessible to all players, right? Straightforward mechanics, no gimmicks. The game won't launch until 2024. So that is a little bit of time, right? Although this, like the article and limited information we got is in the beginning of May. What is this, 2023? We're still not going to see this for a little while. But they are putting a lot of resources into this project. Now, one of the really cool things, and I think you might appreciate this, and this could be a topic for discussion, limitless deck building. So unlike other TCGs, there is no limit to how many cards you can include in your deck. It's always unlimited. As long as you can shuffle them, you can use them. So this gives players a lot of flexibility and creativity when building the decks. It allows for some really interesting, ideas and strategies and stuff like that. I thought that was fascinating. What are your thoughts right off the bat?
I like that because I think we're so stuck with this idea of 60, right? 60 is just the number, 60 or 100, sometimes 40, but it's never really unlimited, right? And so I think that's sort of a playful thing. And this is also the evolution of CCGs, right? Where games are sort of, we haven't really changed much as far as gaming, right? Like you had these waves of innovation where like, the first CCGs in like the 90s were like basically board games. And then you kind of evolved down to like, it turns out a CCG should be a 15-minute game, right? That's like sort of the ideal format.
Limitless, like
it makes it like finding your cards you want really hard though, right? It makes it like you got your, whatever you're tracking, your Vaders. You gotta, if you put them in a 100-card deck, it's gonna be way harder to find the Vaders, right?
Right. So now you're thinking, okay, maybe I only want 40 cards in my deck and just like really a tight ship and get good stuff.
There's no bottom limit there. Like you could have 20 or something in there.
I don't know about a bottom. I haven't found anything about a bottom, but they are highlighting this idea that like you can make your deck like super, thick and fat. But my guess is you're probably going to come across these cards that are like really unique or have like a specific function, but they're going to be so deep in there that you really want to be more thoughtful in terms of what you actually want to dump in there versus like, oh, I need to find this one card. Unless there's cards that allow you to fish through your deck, that's going to be challenging. So maybe you don't want it much more than 60.
I think it depends if they have limits in the number of a copy of cards you can put in your deck, but this also is a great marketing strategy because now people are going to have these chase cards like, all right, I need to have 25 faders, right? And like you're going to see the secondary market reacting to decks requiring 25 faders or whatever it is. I'm curious. So the art of this game, though, it's not movie stills, right? It's going to be like what sort of?
They're creating their own artwork for it. So I'm guessing it's going to be either drawing, painting, computer rendering.
I'm just hoping it looks like the game Shadows of the Empire. Like I want it basically look like the Wampa from Shadows of the Empire. That's like what I would really love for the art to look like on this.
I wish there was more on Shadows of the Empire in general.
Right, like really Dash cool. Rendar fighting a Wampa, like that's the highlight of like my teenage life, basically.
Now here's another mechanic of this game because I want to continue the rest of this. There's custom dice, so it does use custom dice the players roll during the game to determine the outcome, right? So of certain actions. So this does add a little bit of chance, excitement, yada yada, but it does make it a little bit unpredictable. Personally, I'm not crazy about adding the element of dice into a card game.
Fantasy Flight just can't get away from dice, man. They just love I don't know, they have like a long-term contract with a dice maker in China or something. Like they can't get out of the contract, but I don't know why they just love their dice.
Yeah, to me it takes a little bit element of the strategy away, and maybe this is their attempt of making it a little more accessible in that you can't strategize it to the point of like a grandmaster and just like earn people purely on your deck because you're gonna have to win on the dice too. Like they're probably making it so you have a fighting chance even if you're getting slaughtered everywhere else with the dice. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that idea, but I just we'll see. If it's something that's like used for side things and it's not part of the main play, like every turn we have to roll a dice of how many spaces I can move or how many worlds I can move or something, then that would be more annoying. But if it's like, okay, I make all the strategy and now we're going to go to battle and my bonus will be whatever dice roll I get or something in terms of an attack, maybe that I can live with. I think so.
It's like Risk, right? Like Risk uses dice, right? Like that's kind of okay, right? You don't mind that. Like
Risk is pretty wild too.
Dude, Risk is a great like teenage board game to like have your buddies over and like sit there and try conquering Kamchatka, like or whatever, like Gnome Old Asia.
Well, it'd be like 5 of us, and then we'd all gang up on like the best player, and then once he was out of the game, we're like, we're done, we all win.
Yeah, right. It was always the player that started in Australia, right, with Risk. I think I'm excited to see where this evolves, and we'll kind of keep an eye on this. It's 2024 is a while out. Kyle, do you have anything more? You want to move to kind of Magic talk here? The in the room.
The only other thing I will say about this from like a collecting standpoint is yes, there will be like varieties and variations of certain cards, but for like a non-collector, they will make it available to be able to buy complete sets of cards. So you don't have to like fish through lots of stuff to complete one. If you wanted to buy a complete set, you can buy a complete set. So I thought that was kind of an interesting element, at least in terms of from a collector standpoint. So even if you want to collect, the alternates, I guess you have to fish through boosters. But if you just want a complete set to have it or play the game, then you can just buy that as is. So
yeah, I kind of like that. And I think that's what they've done with a few of their other games. With the Lord of the Rings is like a bit of a fixed game. I need to look into that a little bit more. But definitely something to keep an eye on. And I think that this is a good segue into sort of our final topic here, which is the Lord of the Rings Magic game. So I think the last 2 games exist because there's weakness in the empire of Magic the Gathering, right? I think that the 40 million players that play Magic have become increasingly agitated with how Wizards of the Coast has treated them over the last couple of years. And I think that is creating an opening for products like Lorcana and this, new Star Wars game whenever it comes out. So let's talk a little bit about the new sort of signature thing coming out from Wizard of the Coast, which is the Lord of the Rings set to be released in June, sort of mid-June. And this is sort of this continuing part of Magic going into alternative universes and sort of expanding it. This was announced 2 years ago. I think Magic or Wizard of the Coast secured the rights to do something like this, but they didn't really do anything on it. And they started kind of putting out little Easter eggs earlier this year. And then there's a little bit of controversy because, some of the characters look a little different in the cards than people thought they should look based on Tolkien's work. We don't want to touch on that. I don't think that's relevant discussion. But
artistic,
artistic license,
interpretation, it is what it is.
I will just say that, I think the cards themselves look very cool. They look very interesting. I think it's really fun to see the Lord of the Rings universe, sort of reskinned with this Magic template. I mean, I think Magic is the most successful game of all time for a reason. It's because it's, framed in a way the cards look nice, and Wizards has gotten pretty good at making this stuff. But I think the big notable thing here, maybe this is a good kind of point of discussion, is they've announced that there's going to be a one ring. It's going to be in the Dark Tongue of Mordor. Right? So it's basically, I think it's 1 out of 3 million collector booster packs. So I don't.
They also weren't they going to make ones out of 5, ones out of 10? They were going to make
so there's
variations, right?
There's Soul Ring, which is a sort of artifact. I think they're going to print them. There's 1,900 total, and they're going to print them in different sets with the Elven rings, the Dwarven rings. So there's a lot of things as a collector that I'm like, oh, what'd you say? I mean, the one ring, I don't think I'm going to bother chasing it, but this other stuff seems to be pretty interesting. This is definitely money grab by Wizards, but maybe it's a money grab we like. It was sort of funny to be tracking this. I was looking at the pre-orders on Amazon. I was like, oh, should I buy some of these or not? And then once they announced the one ring, the 1 of 1, the box prices just doubled, right? Because all of a sudden there was this excitement, and somewhere a Wizards of the Coast executive was just oh, so happy.
Well, it's gambling at that point,
right.
It kind of reminds me of some of the sports card stuff, and you see this you're all trying to chase this card that is going to be worth a fortune.
Right, and I think that's part of the issue, though, is when you have this 1 of 1, you have to really worry about counterfeiting. You have to worry. What if the 1 of 1 ends up in the hands of a Wizards of the Coast employee, right? Yeah, I'm sure the Wizards of the Coast employee is going to buy this stuff. It ends up with the friends or family of a Wizard. There's all these scenarios where this could get kind of gross.
I'm gonna randomly buy a booster. I'm gonna pull it. No one's gonna know for forever. They're all gonna freak out about it.
Right. Or just, no one ever finds it.
Nobody
right?
will know it. They'll just keep it and then be one day, oh, I found this card.
Right. It'd be an Antiques Roadshow kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that that's the issue of doing truly a 1 of 1. I guess it's 1 out of every 3 million collector boosters. I assume they might be putting more than 3 million booster packs, but who kind of knows?
The super collector in me would be very tempted to be buying cases and cases of this stuff with the think oh, I'm probably going to pull it because I've bought so much product, not knowing.
Right. Of course, I would pull it. This is I am the main character of the story, so I'm going to pull it. Right? Yeah. Obviously. I think more broadly, the lands in the set look really great. I think they're going to be one of these kind of classic things to include in, decks, and collectors are going to grab them. I think that there's a lot to like about this. I'm a little I think it's going to be sort of a 1 of 1 where this is going to be the only set. I could be wrong. There's a lot of conflicting information about what their kind of plans are, but I do wish that right now Magic is just coming out at such a frantic pace, and I think players are a little tired of it.
but again, who's the target market for this new product, right? Is this product supposed to bring in new players, or is it supposed to celebrate the existing players by bringing in something a lot of people like?
I think it's the latter there, because it's not going to be legal in standard. So that standard is the tournament format that goes on for 2 years. So I think it's going to be in sort of commander format and modern. And so basically my point here is there's not going to be a huge competitive play scene using these cards specifically. So I think the audience is definitely going to be sort of existing Magic people, maybe bringing some people back and forth. I mean, the number of people that I've just known from sort of the collecting communities that have been out of Magic for a couple of years and are like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a case, of course. Like, and it's like so.
Okay. So maybe it's meant to drudge up like some old Magic people who feel like they've gotten
the
far
dormant
away,
folks, right? That
and
are
they're
just
like,
have been
"This
like
is
hibernating.
familiar." Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, even the fact we're talking about this right now, like I haven't bought a Magic set in probably a year and a half. Yeah, like, I play on and off. I go through like 2-year waves where I'll quit and then I'll come back 2 years later, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting enough, and I have a couple things pre-ordered. I'm not going to say exactly what because I don't want anyone to rob my house, but like I've pre-ordered some stuff, and I'm excited for it, right? And I think that's sort of maybe the audience is the dormant folks that have sort of been watching the sidelines that play casually. I always say the best Magic format is the beer and pretzels Magic format. It's just like have some buddies over, have some pretzels, have some beer, play casually. That's fun. Playing competitively, in my opinion, is pretty tedious. But
I can see that.
So I don't know. I'm really curious. June 23 is the public launch date. There's a bunch of pre-release stuff before that, but if you haven't sort of pre-ordered anything right now, I think set boosters are still pretty available. It's really the collector's boosters, so that one of one ring. I got to figure out a better way of saying that. It's like the 111. You
can just say the one ring. Like we'll pretty much know what that is.
The one ring is only going to be in collector's boosters. So that's really the product that's seen this tremendous increase in value, right? Because everyone's sort of speculating that. I think the set boosters and the draft boosters are going to kind of remain at a pretty affordable price point. There's also some commander decks there, so I think it's a fun thing to dive into if you want to get back into Magic.
Quick question on that. So the 1-of-1 ring or the top prizes that are in there, because I know there's other numbered category rings in there, are those going to be available in any of the boosters that you pull through it, or only through specific boxes? Like you have.
So the way it's going to work is there's something called draft boosters, which are truly used to you buy a box and you draft, create decks, which is actually the best way to play Magic in my opinion, right? You just get a box, it's a fun afternoon with a couple buddies. And then there's something called set boosters, which have usually like 1 to 3 rares in there, and you can get some other kind of good stuff. And then the top tier are collector's boosters. And so usually it's like maybe $5 for a draft booster, $7-8 for a set booster. And then collector's boosters can range from like 15 to 25 plus. So the collector's boosters where you're getting all the good stuff. I mean, I've opened some Magic collector booster boxes. It's truly like Christmas. It's like everything in there's a foil, right? You get these there's showcase cards. There's, I mean, some of the coolest. They are fun to open. I got to admit, they're fun to open, and sometimes you can get really good value on there. And since the Magic market is such a robust secondary market, a lot of this stuff you can pull like $150 card that you can pretty easily sell because there's high demand. But like everything, the Magic market, it goes like this. It's like product launches. And then like within 3 months, it's like caving down, right? So it's, you got to get, if you're really in the speculating game.
Because you're into the next thing, right?
Right. Because the next set comes out. I think this will have a little more longevity because of just the Tolkien IP is interesting to more people. But I definitely think, since it's not able to be used in sort of standard, I think that's right. I think there's not going to be as many players using it, but there's definitely been like casual collectors. So really curious about this. I'll be doing some live openings on my own channel, and we'll check back in probably next month for our June update on kind of what's going on there as well. But that's kind of all I got on Magic. Any thoughts there, Kyle?
No, I'm curious to see where that continues. If they end up jumping outside of Lord of the Rings IP to something generic again, like afterward, then maybe there is something to be said with collecting a Lord of the Rings thing, because you'd be like, oh, I just like collecting the Lord of the Rings stuff because that's cool, and maybe people stick around with that. So maybe it won't take the same dive as like a traditional Magic round where you're like a bunch of no-name characters come and go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that definitely could be the case here. I think that it has a little more longevity, and yeah, it'd be curious to see like a year from now what this stuff's worth. Is it up or down, and how much is printed? I'm going to guess quite a bit. It's going to be printed of the draft boosters and set boosters. This is why Magic has this sort of tiered system where Lorcana, they're just releasing essentially the set boosters. There's one type of booster you can buy, but with this tiered booster system, you can have a ton of the first two printed, and the final one you hold back a little bit, and you set a much higher price point on it. So you have a lot more flexibility in your pricing structure and how much you want to print based on, having these 3 tiers essentially. So
Yeah.
Anyways, well, Kyle, this has been fun. If people like this, we're going to do this again next month. If people hate it, we'll probably still do it again next month. And so like, subscribe, check out my channel, Kyle's channel. We got more content on card games and all sorts of fun stuff. Any kind of final thoughts here?
Yeah, I just wanted to add Star Wars Tops. Andor is out.
Ooh, good reminder.
And the Masterworks set is not going to be coming out until June. That's even though it's a little delayed because that's a 2022 Masterworks. So that's a more popular top Star Wars collecting set. The Obi-Wan Kenobi top set will drop May 31st. And that's going to have, some highlighted autos like Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor. It's going to have your parallels like 1 of 1s, 99s, 75s, 50s, 25s, 10s. All that. They're not going to be like art cards like Galaxy. Those will be, more, like the picture cards of kind of like Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that. They will have medallion cards and patch cards as well. They will have numbered parallels of those. So interesting to see where that goes. I think there'll be some, top dollar autos and highlights in there. I don't see anything else crazy about that set in particular. If you really liked the show or like these characters, that's great. But yeah, so that'll be dropping soon. We'll see how the print run is on that. If it's going to be like Book of Boba Fett, where they just went absolutely nuts and there's just literally boxes galore for days and nobody cares about it, or if they printed less of it and then maybe it'll be a more of a collectible item. I'm hoping it's the latter. So we will find out soon. So
collectors are gonna collect. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.
Deuces.